And we're back, fellow sages. Time to talk about the PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, if you're like me, you did not sit through the entire 3-hour presentation. I think I got about 2 minutes into it before I was like, all right, I just need to go watch some other people and read some articles, because I just couldn't sit there and go through it. So I've not seen like the Mass Effect Andromeda reveal or any of that stuff, but I do know that there's a lot of arguments about how the Xbox One S is more powerful, it's cheaper, it comes with games, it actually supports HDR, it has an Ultra HD Blu-ray player, and the PlayStation 4 Pro does not. But I'm not really here to talk about the individual specs, because I'm not the type of gamer who really cares about those types of things. But in order to properly react to this announcement, I've got to put on 3 different hats. See, there's 3 sides of me, essentially, that when I heard the news, I had 3 separate reactions. There's the businessman in me, there's the marketing guru in me, and then there's the gamer in me. We'll get to the gamer last, because I think that's the one that's most significant for this conversation. But starting with the businessman, a lot of people reacted to the press conference, said it was boring, said it was bad. I won't necessarily disagree with that, because I couldn't get through 2 minutes of it before I was like, I just need to go get the condensed information somewhere else and not sit through a lot of the techno babble. Mark Cerny was the one doing the presentation. He's an ingenious man, and I wouldn't take anything from him, but I think when you're trying to launch a new console, not really do a preview for it, but you're really trying to explain this is coming very soon, you need to get hyped. I don't know that Mark is the one you want on stage, because he's more the person who can talk to you about the philosophy, the design philosophies and the technical specs and what they all mean. But at the end of the day, I don't think we as gamers want all of that. What we really want to know is, what are we going to get? What do we have to be excited about in terms of pulling out our wallets? Now, the businessman in me actually sees this announcement as a good thing. Like I said, there's many people that are arguing that the Xbox One S is better, but I don't think that's the point. Here's why. If you read any of the books by Peter F. Drucker, okay, he is essentially the Albert Einstein of business. For all of us that are in business, he's basically written the Bible on how we do business management. One of the things he says in a very powerful book that he wrote many years ago is that a business either innovates or it dies. Okay, and by innovate, it doesn't mean it comes up, in the gaming world, we think of innovation as this huge change or shift in the way we do everything philosophically. But let's be real. Like Solomon said many thousands of years ago in the book of Ecclesiastes, I believe, an old proverbial book, he said there's nothing new under the sun. Games have not really changed all that much since they started. Now, they've changed graphically, they've changed in terms of technical prowess and control, but in terms of what it means to play, games have really not changed that much. I'd argue that they've added a lot of complexities to the very simple elements of play. And what you end up finding, kind of as a side note, is that games that just focus on simple play, like Rocket League, and don't add a lot of complexity, end up being the games that do very well. Call of Duty, Madden probably wouldn't fall into that category, but Madden also doesn't sell the numbers that Call of Duty does. Call of Duty keeps it very simple. Whereas you play a game like Arma 3, it doesn't sell anywhere near what Call of Duty sells because it's too complex. But, so the point I'm making there is that innovation doesn't mean you go from Call of Duty to Arma 3. And that's what a lot of gamers believe. Like, when we don't get something that's completely new and groundbreaking, we think there's no innovation. And that's not true. Essentially, in business, when you're thinking about innovating in terms of like Peter Drucker would say, that your business has to have an innovation goal. In other words, you're going to release a product called the PlayStation 4. What tweaks are you going to make to that system over its lifespan, such that you can continue to keep people who have already bought your material buying your materials? So you put out a slim. Why do you think consoles have been putting out slim units ever since the Atari 2600? It's not because we're going to put out a slim unit because it's a better unit. It's innovation. It's saying, you bought the Atari 2600, now here's I forgot what they call the smaller Atari 2600. it's all about innovation. It's all about staying competitive and keeping your existing customers continuing to spend money with you. Because if you keep everything the same, you give no one a reason to be excited to buy new material from you. So a slim console that costs less than your original model is something for existing customers to get excited about if they bought like a huge Xbox One and they want a smaller one, or people who haven't come into your market yet. So it's a win-win. So I'm saying all that to say the PlayStation 4 Pro is, from a business perspective, an innovation, very much like an iPhone 6 to an iPhone 6S to an iPhone 6S Plus. You've got all of these different stock keeping units or SKUs, and that's minor innovations that are keeping customers spending money with you. So from a business perspective, I think the PlayStation 4 Pro is fine. I don't think it needed to be something grandiose and huge. It did not need to be, even though I'll argue when I get later into the conversation that they could have just waited until they were ready to reveal the PlayStation 5. But this is a good thing from a business perspective because it's going to have people that care about visual fidelity, the smaller market that cares about those things. Some of your PC players are probably a little bit more interested in this. They may spend some change with you. And you're still selling all of your other material. It's not like you're going to stop selling that. So basically, you're providing a slightly higher quality product than what you originally sold for people who may want it. And you're not really expending much expense in research and development to get that to market. And now you can make a return on that investment. So now you're making money on your existing SKUs, and now you've got a new SKU out there that it's not, as good as the Xbox One S or whatever, but that's not what matters. What matters is come Christmas this year, some mom is going to walk into GameStop and be upsold a PlayStation 4 Pro. And she's going to be, well, of course, I want my son to have the best thing. Then this is, you're going to upsell these people. So from a business perspective, I think Sony putting this out is fine. Now, from a marketing perspective, I'm a little bit less optimistic. Here's the deal. When I watched the part of the fact that I got bored within 2 minutes of the press conference is evidence of the fact that this is a very hard machine to market. And so don't overcomplicate what marketing is. It's little more than storytelling. Okay. You can't really tell an interesting story around the PlayStation 4 Pro because it's not that much different from the existing PlayStation 4, and the features it adds, like being able to do, I think, HDR, being able to do 4K, and being able to run VR. You don't necessarily need a press conference to say that. Okay, like Scorpio, for example, going back to E3, you can tell a story around that, and Microsoft did. They got all the developers, these big name people, to tell you a story. Like when I saw the Scorpio and I saw that it had 6 gigaflops, I told my son, like, you can tell a story around something that's way more significant, surprising, and maybe even a little shocking. I imagine the marketing department was having nightmares trying to prepare this presentation, because you can't really do a lot of storytelling around a machine that's just a minor improvement. And like with iPhone, when they put out the 6 and the 6S, it's usually not, at least if I'm not mistaken, it's not like a big world presentation. It's like, oh, by the way, 6S is coming and it does these 3 things better. Go have fun. And that's really what I think should have happened. So from a marketing perspective, I don't think that the PlayStation 4 Pro was a bad idea. I just think having a press conference was a bad idea because there's no storytelling you can put around it. Now, let's talk about my third hat, me as a gamer. All right. Michael T. Shamborn as a gamer couldn't care less about the PlayStation 4 Pro. To be honest with you, I very rarely turn on my PlayStation 4 anymore because most of the stuff I want to play is also on PC. And as a person who records shows, playing games on PC, recording shows on PC, it's just easier. I don't need third-party hardware. I don't have to deal with third-party hardware acting funny, desyncing my audio from my video. But that's not the point. The point is, I play very little PlayStation 4 as it is because most of what I want to play is on PC too. And you telling me that I can play 4K games on a new machine Most of the games I really enjoy playing either aren't in 4K or don't need 4K. And frankly, unless you have a 4K television, one that's big enough for you to be able to even notice 4K, and you're sitting close enough to it to be able to tell the difference between 1080p and 4K. And that's what most people miss is, the optimal 4K experience, just to give you an example, is I think 9 feet away from the TV, and it's like 100-inch television, or at least 80 inches. How many people have an 80-inch TV in their house? Now, granted, I imagine a lot of people do sit 9 feet away. Now, I sit usually about 3 feet away from my screen, so I could totally see 4K on a smaller screen, but I don't really care. And frankly, when you listen to a lot of the experts, and I'm not one, but I read what they say, when it comes to this new technology, resolution is not ultimately what makes televisions look better anyway. It's a lot of other key components that go into their design that make the visual fidelity better than just the resolution. Now, I believe TVs have evolved since 4K launched such that it's there. And 4K TVs and HDR TVs, which is another story, do make sense. But at the end of the day, Gamer Mike couldn't care less, because at the end of the day, you making my game look better is not making tedious games less tedious. It's not telling game designers, please stop giving me Skinner boxes, MMOs. Please stop giving me tedious chores to do in the middle of my games that I usually have to mod out, like repairing weapons all the time. And granted, some people like that stuff, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just telling you from my perspective. So much, like I was playing Dragon's Dogma this past year, and like you have to get oil for your lamp, and you have to make sure you pull your lamp out at night. Like, no, just Peter Molyneux that. Just make the lamp come out. Like, if I got to get oil for the lamp, fine. I still think that's asinine and tedious, because like you're building all of this meta game into the game that's not really game, it's chores. Like, you might as well say, before you can go hunt the dragon, you got to clean your room, Billy. Mike, go upstairs and clean your room. Like, literally, like Shenmue, I'm driving a forklift around to move boxes before I can go fight the dragon. And that's so much game design, like especially in survival games where you have to drink, make sure you got water, make sure you have food, make sure, like, I don't want to manage all of those things. I want to play the adventure. Like, I'm playing, many of you are watching me play The Witcher 3, and I modded out the fixing of the weapons. Not to make the game easier, but because I spent so much time in my menu playing Witcher 4 or Witcher 3 on PlayStation 4 that it was just like, I think I spent an equal amount of time in my menus that I did fighting monsters and having a good time. So I modded that crap out. 4K TVs and HDR capability are not something for me to get excited about, because it doesn't make my games, it doesn't make Venetica, even if it ran in 4K, not be a crappy game. And that's what I want. That's what I want the hardware to address, is give me an experience that the hardware actually supports beyond just technical specs and visual fidelity. And that's, I couldn't care less. Now, granted, there's some folks out there who do care about visual fidelity. The one caveat I'll say to this whole rant as a gamer is that VR is interesting. That is new. That is an innovation, and that's actually a big innovation. And that's something that the hardware is supporting, a different way to play games. Now, me personally, I'm not really all that excited about VR, because I think there's only so many game experiences you can put in there. And I think most of what I enjoy playing doesn't really get a boost from VR, except maybe some of the walking simulators that I play that I actually like. I think I'll have some fun there. But I think VR for me is going to be more about life experiences than gaming and replicating those things. But like I said, as a businessman, I think this is fine. I don't think they needed a press conference, for the love of God, but I think this is a good thing. It's innovation. It's going to help put more money in the pocket of Sony that they can put toward more research and development to bring us better stuff later on. 2, from a marketing perspective, it was a nightmare. Don't do a press conference for this. Just send an email. Like, send your mailing list an email. Say, hey, we got this new box coming out. Or put it up on your website, or, do an article in Forbes or something and leave it at that. As a gamer, I don't really care. I'm not there. I am not the visual fidelity guy. Most of the games I love are older games anyway, except for The Witcher 3. Although Witcher 3's visual fidelity is pretty dope. And it does add to the experience. But that's me. That's the reaction I have to the PlayStation 4 Pro announcement. I think at the end of the day, overall, the PlayStation 4 Pro is a good thing because the more competition you have in the market, the better the market can thrive and survive. So I'm okay with that. I just don't think they necessarily needed a press conference to roll it out. So that's my thoughts. But like I always say on these shows, it ain't about me. It's about us. What were your thoughts of the PlayStation 4 press conference? Or if you're like me, you watched other people talk about it to get the information in a more concise fashion. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Tell me if you think I'm crazy. I'd love to hear it. And as always, friends, Mike T. Shamborn here at Cult Classic Neo headquarters, hacking out of the Matrix, going back to the real world. Love you guys. Catch you on the next one.